The first time my aunt told me to burn Grandpa's reading chair, I obeyed her. 3 months later, she stood beneath a chandelier in a silver gown, accepted an award for saving our family's literacy foundation, and watched security drag me out for stealing money I had never touched. By sunrise, every document that could have cleared me was ash. By winter, my name had become a warning whispered through university corridors. By spring, I was dead. So when I opened my eyes again on the morning after Grandpa's funeral and heard Aunt Vivian say, "That disgusting chair goes straight into the fire," I did not cry, argue, or ask why. I wrapped both hands around its carved wooden arms and smiled. Her face went pale before I had even said no. The chair sat in the corner of Grandpa Elias's library like an old judge waiting to hear one final confession. Its green leather was cracked, one brass tack was missing near the left arm, and the dark walnut frame had been polished so often that the wood reflected the window in blurred gold. Everyone else saw a bulky relic that smelled faintly of dust, cedar oil, and peppermint tea. I saw the last object Grandpa had touched before he died. More importantly, I remembered exactly what happened when I let Vivian destroy it. In my first life, I had been 22, exhausted from grief, and desperate to keep the peace. Vivian had placed one elegant hand on my shoulder and explained that the chair was infested with mold. She said Grandpa would have hated seeing us cling to junk. She said burning it would be cleaner. I believed her because she had spent years making cruelty sound like common sense. I helped the groundskeeper carry the chair behind the estate's stone wall. I watched orange flames climb the leather. Just before the backrest collapsed, something metallic popped inside the frame. Vivian stepped forward so quickly that her heels sank into the mud. She stared into the fire until the metal melted. At the time, I thought she was grieving. That memory struck me now with such force that my fingers tightened around the chair. Vivian stood 3 steps away in a black morning dress that fit her like armor. Beside her, my cousin Celia held a clipboard marked estate inventory and pretended not to watch me. 2 movers waited near the doorway. The fireplace snapped behind them, cheerful and hungry. "Let go, Mara," Vivian said. Her voice remained calm, but the tiny pulse near her left temple had begun to jump. "The upholster confirmed it is unsafe." "No upholster has inspected it," I replied. The room stopped breathing. Celia's pen hovered above the clipboard. One mover looked at the other. Vivian's gaze sharpened. In my first life, I had not known she lied. In this life, I remembered the exact sequence of events. Funeral on Friday, inventory on Saturday, chair burned before noon. No expert had visited the estate. No mold report had existed. Vivian had invented urgency, because urgency prevented questions. She gave a small laugh. "You are understandably emotional." "I am," I said. "That is why I'm keeping Grandpa's chair. The will does not allow beneficiaries to remove property before probate. Then it stays here." I pulled the chair slightly away from the movers. "Unburned." Her expression changed for less than a second. It was not anger. Anger would have been easier. What crossed her face was recognition, as though I had repeated a line from a conversation she believed no one else had heard. Celia recovered first. "Mara, don't make this embarrassing." Now I looked at her polished black shoes, her perfect posture, and the clipboard she gripped too tightly. "Write this down," I said. "Chair retained pending independent inspection." Celia's cheeks flushed. "You don't give me orders."
"No."
"But Grandpa did." That was a bluff. I had not yet read the new version of his will. In my first life, Vivian controlled every meeting with the solicitor and fed me summaries instead of documents. I knew only that Grandpa had left the estate to the Elias Reed Literacy Foundation and granted family members limited personal items. Yet the bluff landed. Vivian's eyes flicked toward the chair's backrest.
"There."
Not the seat. Not the legs. The backrest. I filed the detail away. Vivian stepped closer. "Your grandfather was confused during his final months. He scribbled on things. Hid objects. Accused loyal people of nonsense. That chair encouraged his worst habits. It would be healthier for everyone if we ended this attachment now." "What did he hide?" I asked. Her lips parted. Only for a heartbeat. Then she smiled. Books, usually.
Sweets.
Notes he forgot writing. I leaned toward the backrest and pressed my palm against the leather. The padding felt uneven near the upper right corner. In my first life, flames had reached that section last. I remembered the metallic sound again, a sharp pop, then a dull clink. Vivian reached for my wrist. Do not touch it. I moved faster and pulled away. The room shifted. Until that moment, everyone could pretend this was an argument about sentiment. Her sudden movement exposed something uglier. One mover lowered his hands. Celia stared at her mother. Vivian immediately softened her tone. There may be rusted springs. Then you should be relieved I'm arranging an inspection. I took out my phone and photographed the chair from every angle. Front, back, arms, brass tacks, carved crest, the underside. Vivian watched each flash as if it were a match being struck near spilled fuel. What are you doing? Celia demanded. Documenting estate property. You're being dramatic. Yes, I said. But I'm also creating timestamps. That silenced her. My second life had begun less than 20 minutes earlier, when I woke in Grandpa's guest room wearing the same black dress I had worn to his funeral. At first, I thought death had trapped me inside a memory. Then I saw the date on my phone. October 14th, 6 years before the night I died. My old messages were back. My student identification card lay on the bedside table. The scar across my right palm, earned during my final winter, was gone. I spent 5 minutes shaking, 1 minute vomiting, and the next 10 reading every calendar entry I had forgotten. I did not waste time asking why I had returned. Questions about miracles could wait. Vivian could not. In my first life, the chair burned at 11:47 in the morning. At 1:15, Grandpa's solicitor arrived and asked why the library smelled of smoke. At 2, Vivian announced that no personal memorandum had been found. At 4, she became interim chairwoman of the foundation. 6 months later, she accused me of siphoning scholarship funds through a student outreach account I had helped manage. Celia supplied emails. The foundation supplied transaction records. The university supplied outrage. I supplied confusion, which the newspapers translated into guilt. The real theft had been larger than anyone knew. I discovered that too late, after my expulsion, when a retired accountant mailed me a partial ledger showing millions diverted through shell charities. Before I could publish it, my apartment was broken into. The ledger vanished. 2 days later, my car went through a bridge railing during a storm. The police called it loss of control. I remembered hands on my steering wheel that were not mine. Now, standing in Grandpa's library, I realized the chair had been the beginning. Whatever it contained had frightened Vivian enough to risk destroying estate property before probate. I would not make the same mistake twice. Mr. Hale, I said to the older mover, reading the stitched name on his work shirt, please leave the chair where it is. He glanced at Vivian.
Ma'am.
She is not the executor, I said. Vivian's chin lifted. Neither are you.
Exactly.
So neither of us authorizes destruction. Mr. Hale backed away from the chair with visible relief. His partner followed. Vivian did not argue because witnesses complicated bullies. Instead, she turned to Celia. Continue with the dining room. Celia hesitated. What about?
Now.
They left with the movers. Vivian remained in the doorway, one hand resting against the frame. Her black dress absorbed the daylight, but her face had lost color. You always were stubborn, she said.
No.
I used to be obedient. Something cold entered her eyes. Grief can make people imagine enemies. And fear can make people burn chairs. The pulse at her temple jumped again. Then she walked away. So before examining the chair, I locked the library doors, closed the curtains, and started a live video backup to 3 cloud accounts. I narrated the date, time, condition of the room, and every visible feature of the chair. My voice shook during the first minute. By the third, it sounded like Grandpa's when he read mystery novels aloud, measured, patient, almost amused. Subject is an antique walnut reading chair, I said to the camera. Green leather upholstery. Approximate age unknown. One missing brass tack on left arm. Uneven padding at upper right backrest.
No visible mold.
I crouched and inspected the underside. Dust coated the support webbing, but one strip had been replaced more recently than the others. The newer fabric was secured with dark staples instead of brass tacks. I fetched a letter opener from Grandpa's desk, then stopped. Too obvious. If the compartment contained something fragile, cutting blindly could destroy it. Grandpa never solved problems by forcing them. He designed his library around puzzles, rolling ladders that locked at particular shelves, bookplates containing ciphers, tiny carved ravens pointing toward hidden drawers. He believed good secrets should reward attention, not violence. I sat on the rug and studied the chair. The carved crest at the top showed an open book beneath a crescent moon. I had traced it 1,000 times as a child. Grandpa called the chair Beatrice, after his favorite librarian. He sat in it every evening at 8, crossed his left ankle over his right knee, and read exactly 40 pages before making tea. If I interrupted, he never complained. He simply tapped the empty footstool and said, "Every mystery improves when another mind enters the room." A memory surfaced, Grandpa pressing the missing brass tack with his thumb. Not missing. A button. I reached for the small hole on the left arm and pushed inward with the tip of the letter opener. Something clicked inside the wood. The carved open book on the crest shifted forward by half an inch. My heartbeat slammed. I pulled gently. A narrow panel slid from the top of the backrest, revealing a cavity lined with red felt. Inside lay a pair of reading glasses, a brass key, and a folded card in Grandpa's handwriting. "Mara, if Vivian asks you to burn the chair, she knows enough to be dangerous and not enough to be safe. Do not confront her yet. Read what she never could." Below the message, he had drawn a small black raven and written 3 numbers, 4, 19, 2. I pressed the card to my mouth. Grief rose sharp and hot, but I refused to let it drown me. Tears could come later. Right now, the dead had given me instructions. Read what she never could. Vivian hated fiction. She skimmed reports, memorized summaries, and mocked Grandpa's habit of annotating novels. Whenever he recommended a book, she asked for the important part. He always answered, "The important part is what you skip." The numbers had to point toward a book. Shelf 4, row 19, volume 2, page 4, line 19, word 2. Grandpa loved layered clues, but he also knew I was under pressure. I examined the brass key. Its bow was shaped like a raven. The same raven appeared on the card. Across the room, above the fireplace, stood a row of black-spined books called the Raven Society Mysteries. 19 volumes. I climbed the ladder and pulled out volume 4. Nothing. I tried volume 19. Locked inside the hollowed pages was a small wooden box with 3 keyholes. The brass key fit the second. A soft mechanism released. The lid opened. Inside was not a ledger, recording, or confession. It was a library card bearing my mother's name.
Elena read.
My mother had died when I was 9. Family history described her as brilliant but unstable, a gifted educator who abandoned her research and then drove while exhausted. Vivian rarely spoke about her younger sister except to sigh. Grandpa spoke of her constantly, but never discussed the accident. In my first life, I accepted the silence because children learn which doors make adults angry. On the back of the library card, Grandpa had written, "She finished the program." Vivian stole the credit. Ask Beatrice, where Elena sat. Beatrice was the chair. But where had my mother sat? I looked at the worn leather. The seat sagged slightly on the left. One arm had faint scratches near the front. As a child, I thought Grandpa caused them with his ring. Now I noticed the marks formed letters.
I.E. Elena read.
My mother had sat here while developing the literacy system that made Vivian famous. The Elias Reed Foundation's flagship program, Lantern Reading, had been credited with transforming struggling schools across the state. Vivian built her career on it. She claimed she designed the method after watching disadvantaged children fall behind. Awards followed. Grants followed. Influence followed. The program's logo was a lantern inside an open book. I stared at the chair's carved crest, a crescent moon above an open book. The original symbol had been changed. A sound came from the corridor. Not footsteps. A soft scrape near the lock. Someone was trying the library door. I closed the wooden box, returned it to the hollowed volume, and slipped Grandpa's card, the key, and my mother's library card into the inside pocket of my dress. Then I moved behind the curtain beside the window and kept my phone recording. The lock clicked. Celia entered using a ring of estate keys. She shut the door quietly and scanned the room. Her grief-stricken cousin performance had vanished. She moved directly toward the chair, crouched, and ran her fingers along the left arm. When she found the hole where the brass tack should have been, she whispered a curse. I stepped out. Lose something. Celia jerked so hard, she struck her shoulder against the chair. Her face strained. For one beautiful second, she looked exactly like a child caught stealing biscuits. Then the mask returned. Mother asked me to check for mold. With a skeleton key? This is our family library. Then why did you lock the door behind you? She looked at my phone. Are you filming me? I'm documenting estate property. You need permission. From the person entering a locked room without announcing herself? What did you find? She asked. A pair of reading glasses. You're lying. Interesting response. She took one step toward me. Grandpa was ill. He wrote paranoid nonsense. If you found anything that could upset Mother, you should give it to me before you misunderstand it. I tilted my head. Why would Grandpa's nonsense upset her? He blamed her for everything near the end. Everything. Celia's jaw tightened. The Foundation's audit. Your mother's death. His own medication. He was confused. 3 revelations delivered too quickly. I said nothing. Silence frightened liars because they rushed to fill it.
Celia did.
The audit found no wrongdoing, she continued. Your mother's accident was investigated, and Grandpa sometimes forgot whether he took his pills. Mother handled all of it because no one else was responsible enough. In my first life, Grandpa's death had been attributed to cardiac failure. No one mentioned medication problems. Yet Celia had just connected Vivian to them without being asked. Thank you, I said. For what? For telling me where to look. Her composure broke. You think you're clever because Grandpa filled your head with stories. You're not. You're a scholarship student with average marks and no influence. Mother runs this estate, the foundation, and half the university board. Whatever you found belongs to the family. I am family. You're Elena's daughter. The contempt in her voice clarified more than any confession. I smiled. Exactly. Celia lunged for my pocket. I twisted aside. Her fingers caught the fabric, tearing a seam, but I kept my balance and shoved the chair between us. She hit the backrest and a second mechanism clicked. A panel beneath the right arm opened. Something dropped onto the rug. A cassette tape. Both of us froze. Grandpa had used cassettes long after everyone else switched to digital recorders. He said people trusted obsolete technology because they stopped seeing it as technology. Celia moved first. So did I. We hit the floor from opposite sides. Her nails scraped my wrist. My hand closed around the cassette. She grabbed my hair and pulled. Pain flashed across my scalp, but pain was an old teacher. In my first life, I had died fighting a stranger for control of a steering wheel. Celia's grip was nothing compared with that final struggle. I drove my elbow backward. She gasped and released me. I rolled away, shoved the cassette inside my dress, and stood. Celia remained on the carpet, one hand pressed to her ribs. You attacked me. You broke into a locked room and grabbed me. The video will be fascinating. Her eyes moved to my phone on the desk. Then she smiled. That smile chilled me because it meant she had noticed what I had not. My phone screen was dark. The live backup had stopped. Celia rose slowly. The estate Wi-Fi has been unreliable all morning. Pattern interrupted. I had believed preparation made me safe. Celia had prepared too. She brushed dust from her skirt. Give me the tape, Mara. There is no proof I touched you. I looked toward the old intercom box above Grandpa's desk. A tiny red light blinked behind its grill. "You're right," I said. "The phone missed it." Celia's smile widened. But Grandpa's security system didn't. Her gaze snapped upward. "You have no idea what you're starting," she whispered. "No," I said. "I know exactly how it ends." She left without another word. The moment the door shut, I locked it again and slid a bookcase ladder under the handle. Then I pulled out the cassette. Written on the label in my mother's handwriting were 4 words. Lantern Test, Session 7. The tape was not the metallic object I had heard melt in the first life. It was plastic. The chair still held something else. But for the first time since waking, I had proof that my mother's work had existed before Vivian claimed it. I also had a new problem. Cassette players had vanished from the estate years ago. Or so I thought. Grandpa believed every obsolete format deserved one functioning machine. In the basement archive, he kept record players, slide projectors, microfilm readers, and a beige computer older than I was. The archive door required a key code Vivian controlled. In my first life, she said a pipe leak destroyed most of its contents 2 weeks after the funeral. 2 weeks. This time, she would not wait that long. Nora Bell answered on the 4th ring. "Mara, are you all right?" "I found a cassette in Beatrice," I said. Silence. Then Nora asked, "Did Vivian tell you to burn the chair?" My skin prickled. "How did you know?" "Because Elias told me that would be the signal." Signal for what? That he had run out of time. A door slammed somewhere inside the estate. I moved behind the conservatory wall. "Can you access the archive?" "Not through the main entrance. She changed the code after firing me." "Is there another way?" Nora sighed. "Your grandfather built the archive. Of course there is another way." 20 minutes later, an old blue hatchback rolled through the service gate. Nora stepped out carrying a canvas tool bag and a thermos. She did not hug me. She looked at my face, placed one hand against my cheek, and said, "You have Elena's eyes when you are angry." That nearly undid me. We entered through the greenhouse boiler room. Behind a rack of clay pots, Nora removed 2 screws and opened a narrow maintenance panel. A brick passage descended beneath the estate. Grandpa had once used it to move books from the original cellar without exposing them to rain. Vivian thought the passage had been sealed. "She thinks buildings begin when she notices them," Nora muttered. The tunnel ended behind a rolling shelf in the basement archive. We pushed through and entered darkness smelling of paper, metal, and cold stone. I turned on my phone light. Rows of cabinets stretched ahead. Plastic sheets covered several tables. Nothing showed water damage. "So the pipe leak was another lie," I said. "What pipe leak?" "In 2 weeks, Vivian will claim the archive floods." Nora looked at me strangely. I had revealed too much. "I mean, she threatened to close it," I corrected. Nora did not believe me, but she chose not to ask. "The cassette station is at the rear." We found a gray player beside a bank of monitors. I inserted the tape. Static filled the headphones, followed by a woman's laugh. My mother's laugh. Then Grandpa's younger voice spoke. Session 7, June 3rd.
Elena Red conducting.
Participant Group B. Halfway through, a door opened on the recording. Vivian's voice said, "Father wants you upstairs." My mother replied, "We are testing." "You are playing school in a basement. I am collecting results. You do not have qualifications to publish this. I will next year." Then Vivian said the sentence that changed everything. "Give me the framework, Elena. I can make people take it seriously." The tape clicked off seconds later. Nora removed her glasses. "I never heard this." Grandpa hid it. He hid more than that. She pointed toward a catalog terminal. "The number on the cassette is not a session number. Look." The label's handwritten 7 had a line through it, Grandpa's old mark for an archive location. We searched the database for Lantern Test, Session 7. The result listed a cabinet, drawer, and item code, B4192. The numbers from Grandpa's card. Cabinet B contained microfilm reels. Drawer 4 held 19 boxes. The second box was empty except for a typed note, She will search the archive. The chair carries the index. The index carries the door. Nora read it twice. He moved the evidence. Where? Somewhere Vivian could not enter without revealing what she knew. A sharp electronic beep echoed through the archive. The main door unlocked. Nora killed the lights. We slipped behind a cabinet as footsteps entered. Vivian came first, holding a torch. Celia followed with the estate's security manager, Grant Vale, the same man who, 6 years later, would sit beside me in a car during a storm and reach for my steering wheel. My body remembered him before my mind did. Every muscle locked. Rain seemed to roar inside my ears. I saw his knuckles, the bridge barrier, black water below. Nora squeezed my hand once. The archive returned. Vivian stopped beside the cassette station. She found something in the chair, Celia said. A tape. Grant asked, "Did she play it?" "I don't know. You were supposed to take the chair before she woke," Vivian snapped. Celia's voice hardened. "You told the movers it was routine. You did not tell me Grandpa left mechanisms inside it. He was not supposed to finish them." Grant swept his torch across the cabinets. "What exactly are we looking for?" "An index," Vivian said. "Possibly a key. Elias accused me of altering Elena's research files and diverting Grant money. He collected copies. Without the index, the copies are useless." "Then burn the entire archive," Celia said. No, Vivian's answer came too quickly. "The Foundation's legal records are here. A fire invites investigators." Grant chuckled. "A pipe failure is quieter." My future flashed before me. The flood, the missing ledger, the bridge. Grant had not been a desperate employee acting alone. He had been Vivian's cleaner for years. Vivian lowered her voice. "Search first. Tonight, we remove anything linked to Elena. Tomorrow, the chair disappears." They split up. Nora leaned toward my ear. "We need to leave." Then I noticed the archive monitors. A red timestamp glowed in the corner of each screen. Grandpa's security system was real. Nora followed my gaze and understood. She pointed toward a small server cabinet near the hidden passage. We crawled behind the shelves while Grant opened drawers less than 10 feet away. At the server, Nora inserted a flash drive from her tool bag and copied the camera files. The progress bar moved slowly. 20%. Grant's footsteps approached. 38.
A cabinet slammed.
51. My phone vibrated suddenly as it caught a thin signal near the passage. The sound was tiny, but Grant stopped. "Who's there?" Nora pulled the drive at 64%. We slipped through the rolling shelf just as his torch struck the wall. The passage swallowed us. "Behind us," Grant shouted. We exited through a side door and separated. Nora drove away with the partial footage. I returned to the library through the conservatory and found the reading chair gone. For 1 second, I could not move. Then I saw the drag marks in the rug and ran. The corridor was empty. The dining room held stacked paintings. The front drive showed no truck. A faint smell of petrol drifted from the rear courtyard. They had moved faster than I expected. I sprinted through the kitchen, shoved open the service door, and reached the stone fire pit behind the wall. Grant stood beside the chair with a red fuel can. Celia held a box of matches. Vivian watched from beneath a black umbrella, composed again. Rain had begun. "Mara," she called, "stay back." The mold inspection confirmed spores. I laughed. I could not help it. The lie was so thin that even Celia glanced away. "Show me the report. It will be filed with probate." "Show me the inspector." Vivian's smile vanished. "You are not well." Grant tipped the fuel can. I raised my phone. "The archive cameras recorded your conversation." The can stopped. Celia looked at her mother. Vivian did not blink, but her face emptied of color in the same way it had when I first held the chair. "You broke into a restricted archive," she said. "Interesting. I never said I was there." Grant slowly set down the can. That was the moment her bluff collapsed. Not publicly. Not completely. But inside the family, where fear had always flowed in one direction, the current reversed. Vivian realized I possessed information she could not measure. Celia realized her mother had hidden the scale of the danger from her. Grant realized he might become the disposable part of the plan. Rain struck the umbrella between us. I walked toward the chair. Move. Grant looked at Vivian. She said nothing. He stepped aside. Halfway across the courtyard, Vivian spoke. You think a recording will save you? I turned. People hear what power teaches them to hear, she said. Your mother learned that. Elias learned it. You will too. Maybe, I replied. But this time, they will hear it more than once. I brought the chair into the library and called Grandpa's solicitor directly. Mr. Adrian Shaw arrived at 1:15 exactly as he had in my first life. This time, he did not smell smoke. He found me sitting on the floor beside Beatrice, Nora's copied video uploading from 3 locations, while Vivian waited in the drawing room with Grant. I expected Mr. Shaw to doubt me. Instead, when I showed him Grandpa's card, he closed his eyes. He told me you might find this, he said. You knew. I knew there was a conditional memorandum. I did not know where he placed it. Vivian said no memorandum existed, in the version of events she preferred. He placed his briefcase on the desk. Your grandfather revised his will 6 weeks ago. He anticipated a challenge, so he divided the instructions. The legal document is with me. The evidence establishing the condition was left to you. What condition? Mr. Shaw looked at the reading chair. Possession of the foundation does not pass to the interim chairwoman. It passes to the beneficiary who can authenticate Elena Reed's original Lantern framework and present the complete archive index at the annual Founders Gala. The gala was tomorrow night. Vivian already expected to be confirmed as permanent chairwoman there. In my first life, I had watched from the back row while donors applauded her. Grandpa had turned the ceremony into a deadline. Why make it public? I asked. Because private evidence can be buried. Public succession is harder to rewrite. And if no one completes the condition, control remains with the board. A board Vivian controlled. Mr. Shaw continued, your grandfather believed the index was concealed in the chair, but he warned me not to dismantle it. He said the correct reader would know how to open the final compartment. Correct reader, I repeated. Not owner, not heir.
Reader.
Grandpa's first note said, read what she never could. Mr. Shaw opened his briefcase and gave me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single page copied from Grandpa's will. At the bottom, beneath formal language, he had added a quotation. A chair remembers not who commands the room, but who remains long enough to finish the chapter. I read it aloud. Nothing happened. Nora arrived 10 minutes later with a partial security footage. Together, we replayed Grandpa's words. Remains long enough. Finish the chapter. The chair had been designed around his reading routine. 40 pages. Left ankle crossed over right knee. Tea afterward. Weight and time, Nora said. A pressure mechanism, I replied. I sat in Beatrice. The leather side beneath me. I crossed my left ankle over my right knee and opened the Raven Society Mysteries, Volume 19. Page by page, I read the final chapter. At first, I felt ridiculous. Vivian was gathering lawyers upstairs. Grant was probably destroying evidence elsewhere. Tomorrow's deadline approached. Yet Grandpa's puzzles demanded patience, the one resource panic always stole. At page 39, nothing happened. At page 40, a clock chimed 8 in the hallway. A vibration moved through the chair's right arm. The carved crescent moon rotated. Beneath it, a narrow brass cylinder emerged from the backrest. The metallic object. In my first life, I had heard this cylinder fall into the fire. My hands shook as I removed it. The raven-shaped key opened one end. Inside was a tightly rolled strip of microfilm and a small data key sealed in wax. Nora exhaled. The complete index. The microfilm mapped every copy of Elena's research, every grant ledger, every audio test, and every correspondence file. The data key contained encrypted duplicates. Grandpa had not hidden all the evidence in one chair. He had hidden the map to evidence scattered across libraries, university repositories, sealed legal deposits, and partner schools. Burning the chair would not destroy the truth. It would destroy our ability to find it. Vivian knew enough to fear Beatrice, but not enough to understand Grandpa's design. Exactly as his note said. We worked through the night. Nora authenticated dates. Mr. Shaw contacted an independent forensic accountant and 2 trustees not aligned with Vivian. I copied every file. At 3 in the morning, the first ledger opened. Vivian had diverted foundation grants for 12 years through consulting companies controlled by Grant. More painful was the correspondence surrounding my mother. Elena had refused to transfer ownership of Lantern Reading. Days later, anonymous complaints questioned her credentials. Vivian offered to protect the work by publishing under the foundation. Elena threatened legal action. The final email was sent the night before her fatal crash. You can have the name or the method, Elena. You will not keep both. There was no proof Vivian caused the crash. Grandpa had searched and failed to establish that. I would not invent what the evidence could not support. Truth did not need decoration. But Grandpa's medication records were clearer. Grant had collected prescriptions from 2 pharmacies. Dosages overlapped. Vivian signed home care logs claiming the correct tablets were administered. A toxicology note, suppressed from the family summary, showed elevated sedative levels during Grandpa's final week. He had not died from poison. The cardiologist wrote that the medication error likely weakened him and accelerated the failure. Negligence, fraud, concealment. Enough. So I changed the goal. I would not attend the gala to humiliate her. I would attend to make correction permanent. The Founders' Gala filled the Grand Meridian Ballroom with donors, university officials, school principals, journalists, and former Lantern students. Vivian wore the same silver gown I remembered from my first life. Celia wore blue and stood near the stage, checking her phone every few seconds. Grant remained by the service entrance. They expected me to arrive with accusations. I arrived with Grandpa's chair. I wore my mother's green scarf and carried no visible files. That unsettled them more. Vivian crossed the room before the program began. Her smile never reached her eyes. What performance is this? An inheritance presentation. The board has not recognized your claim. They have not heard it. She leaned closer. Grant says the archive footage was incomplete. I smiled. Grant talks too much when nervous. Her gaze flicked toward him. Another crack. You could still walk away, she said. I can protect your scholarship, your position, your future. In my first life, I would have heard an offer. Now I heard inventory.
Scholarship.
Position. Future. Things she believed she owned. You already protected my mother, I said. Vivian's face tightened. The stage lights brightened. Mr. Shaw approached the microphone and announced that Grandpa's revised succession memorandum would be executed before the foundation address. Murmurs spread. Board members looked at Vivian. She moved toward the stage with practiced confidence. I welcome transparency, she said into the microphone. My father's declining health led him to create several contradictory notes, and we should treat them with compassion. She had chosen her defense. The dead man was confused. Mr. Shaw read the legal condition. Authenticate Elena Reed's original framework. Present the archive index. Establish continuity of mission. Vivian laughed softly. Elena abandoned her unfinished experiments. Lantern Reading was developed by my team years later. This condition is impossible because the alleged framework never existed. That was her bluff. I walked onto the stage carrying the cassette player. Session 7, I said. My mother's voice filled the ballroom. Children read. Grandpa documented the date. Elena explained the layered prompt method. Then Vivian's younger voice entered the recording and asked for the framework because she could make people take it seriously. No one moved. The sound quality was imperfect, but identity does not always require clarity. Sometimes a person recognizes herself before everyone else does. Vivian's face went pale at the first syllable. She reached for the microphone. A tape can be edited. Correct, I said. So we authenticated the magnetic age, recording sequence, and voice pattern through independent experts. Their preliminary reports are in the press packet. Screens around the ballroom displayed scanned pages from Elena's notebooks, each time-stamped years before Vivian's publication. Partner schools had produced archived pilot materials. A university repository held Elena's sealed thesis draft. Grandpa's index connected them all. Celia began backing away from the stage. I changed slides. Grant's consulting companies appeared beside diverted grant totals.
He ran.
Not toward the door. Toward the control booth. Pattern interrupted again. The screens went black. The ballroom lights cut out. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped. For 2 seconds, darkness gave Vivian back her favorite weapon, confusion. Then Beatrice lit up. Grandpa had installed a battery-powered reading lamp beneath the crescent crest. Its warm circle illuminated the chair at center stage. Nora, seated in the front row, activated the independent projector we had hidden behind the press riser. The evidence returned on a white wall twice as large as before. Grant reached the booth and found 2 police investigators waiting inside. The lights came back. He was escorted through the ballroom in handcuffs. Vivian did not run. She understood audiences too well. She stepped toward me and lowered her voice, though every microphone nearby captured it. You think this makes you Elena?
No.
You think sitting in that chair makes you Elias?
No.
Then what are you? The question was meant to reduce me. Instead, it freed me from every role she had prepared. I am the woman who read the part you skipped. I inserted the data key into Mr. Shaw's laptop. The complete archive index appeared, followed by the forensic ledger and medication records. Trustees stood. Journalists raised cameras. Former students stared at the woman whose name had been printed on their certificates. Vivian looked from the screens to the chair. Burning it would not have saved you, I said. Grandpa scattered the evidence. The chair only held the map. For the first time, she seemed genuinely confused. He told me everything was inside it.
No.
He let you believe that. Her eyes closed. Grandpa's final trap had not been the compartment. It was Vivian's arrogance. She assumed that because she demanded summaries, everyone else reduced the world to one object, one file, one witness. She never understood readers. We follow references. We remember details. We return to earlier chapters when the ending feels false. Mr. Shaw announced that the succession condition had been satisfied. Control of the Foundation's voting trust transferred to me pending formal probate review. The board's emergency motion suspended Vivian and Celia. Investigators seized the archive, financial records, and medication logs before anyone could remove them. Celia finally spoke from below the stage. Mother said it was ours. Vivian looked at her daughter with naked contempt. Be quiet. That was the end of their alliance. Not a dramatic confession. Not tears. For words. Celia's face changed as she understood that loyalty had never made her loved. It had only made her useful. She took out her phone, opened a folder, and handed it to an investigator. I kept copies, she said. Vivian turned toward her. Celia did not look away. The ballroom erupted, but I heard none of it. I walked to Beatrice and placed my hand on the worn leather. The chair had survived fire, fuel, greed, and 6 years that now existed only in my memory. Yet the victory did not feel loud. It felt like Grandpa turning a page beside me. Months later, Vivian was charged with fraud, evidence tampering, and offenses related to Grandpa's care. Grant faced additional charges after Celia's files connected him to intimidation and staged accidents. Investigators reopened my mother's case, but they found no conclusive proof that her crash had been engineered. I accepted that uncertainty. A truthful ending did not require every wound to become a solved mystery. Celia cooperated, lost her foundation role, and avoided the harshest sentence. She wrote to me twice. I returned both letters unopened. Forgiveness was not a debt I owed on her schedule. The university restored Elena's authorship publicly. Lantern reading became the Elena Read method, and every training manual included the original research timeline. Royalties were redirected into independent school libraries. Nora became chief archivist again, with a budget large enough to make her suspicious. As for the estate, I did not turn Grandpa's library into an office. I opened it. Every Saturday, children came to read beneath the tall windows. Students used the archive without needing a family name. Teachers studied my mother's notes. Grandpa's puzzles remained in the shelves, although I added warnings after 3 teenagers spent 4 hours trying to unlock a cabinet that contained only peppermints. Beatrice stayed in the corner. I had the leather cleaned but not replaced. The scratches bearing my mother's initials remained. So did the missing brass tack. A small plaque beside the chair explained nothing about money, crime, or inheritance. It carried one sentence from Grandpa. The important part is what you skip. For years, visitors asked whether I sat in it. At first, I said no. The chair belonged to memories too heavy for ordinary evenings. Then, on the anniversary of the gala, a shy girl remained after closing. She had failed a reading assessment and believed that meant she was stupid. I heard myself using my mother's layered prompts, slowing the words, turning sounds into images. At page 40, the girl read an entire paragraph without help. She looked at Beatrice. "Was that your grandpa's throne?" I laughed. He would have hated that word. "Can I sit there?" I almost refused. Then I remembered Grandpa tapping the footstool and saying every mystery improved when another mind entered the room. I moved aside. The girl climbed into the chair, opened her book, and began the next chapter. I sat on the footstool beside her. Not above her. Not behind her. Beside her. That was when I finally understood why Grandpa left the chair to a reader instead of an heir. Vivian saw ownership as the right to remove, rename, lock, or burn. Grandpa saw inheritance as the duty to keep a place open for the next person. In my first life, I watched flames consume the chair because I thought obedience preserved peace. It did not. It only cleared the room for a liar. In my second life, I held on. Vivian's face went pale because she thought I had saved a piece of furniture. What I had really saved was the seat from which the truth could be read aloud.